Hello, welcome back to Carissa Explains It All. I am Carissa, I explain it all, and this is my Diary of an Alchemist series. We are starting chapter 4, I believe. I did a chapter 3, I did a video in between about shifting perspectives in order to do shadow work, and that was really what I was learning at that time after chapter 3, so we'll call that chapter 3.5, and this one will be 4. And this basically picks up in January of 2019. The last one was December of 2018. I was trying to manifest winning the lotto, and in this episode, I am learning all the things at that time that come with being a baby when you are like a spiritual baby, an emotional baby, having just started your spiritual journey. Specifically, I was really learning about days of I would have a day off from work and I would feel like I'm in flow and like surrender and all these wonderful things would come in. I was manifesting things. And because I was discovering this like new power of like manifesting things when you're in a state of flow and surrender, I was expecting that all the angel numbers and synchronicities that I was receiving meant that I was about to get my dream life like any minute. And I feel like this is a common theme with people who are just brand new to spirituality. You're just getting into it. You're just discovering law of attraction and manifesting and tarot cards and divination and like spirituality, maybe witchcraft, like all these things are like so exciting, right? And this whole new way of interacting with the world that we've never been taught before. Maybe we've been exposed to it before and we're just coming into more of it or experiencing it ourselves. Or in my case, like I had never been exposed to any of that. We grew up kind of going to church, but weren't like super religious. And then we stopped going when I was around 15, and that was kind of it. I believed in a higher power, and that was it. Like, but I mostly believed in hard work will get you what you want, and that's it. Things don't come in without trying hard. You have to work super hard to get what you want. So this is a time in my life where I'm shifting that. I've just come off a burnout, which I have another video playlist about, where I burned out working at my job 40, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks and just trying to prove myself, and I just completely burnt out to the point where I had to stop. So I was fortunate enough to be able to stop for 6 months, came back to work, and came into a spiritual journey, an emotional healing journey, and that's where our story is picking up. So at this time, I was experiencing a lot of angel numbers, which, you know, is like 1111, 1212, 333 on the clock, on the oven timer, on receipts, you know, just seeing a lot of these numbers. And I'm like, what does it all mean? What is it? Is it telling me like I'm stepping into the world of my dreams, right? Like, what if I just follow this path and like all these wonderful things will happen? And I want to review this time period in my life because I feel like a lot of people go through this. It's kind of like I call it like the ooey gooey stage of like all the fun stuff of spirituality and magic and all these things. But it's, for lack of a better word, and I don't mean anything bad by it, but it's like an immature worldview. It's the child view of the world through the lens of spirituality and magic and all this stuff. It's exciting. There's all the accoutrements of like divination and tarot and angel numbers, but you don't really have a grasp on how everything works yet. So you have these like childlike, wonderful expectations of how it's all going to work out. And where we pick up in the story, this is January 19th of 2019. I'm reading from my laptop. I have read through my journals from that time period and gone like put them on a Word doc and organized them and put them in Excel spreadsheets and got all these tags and stuff. So I'm like trying to make sense of the whole journey. And I think what I get from this time period, January of 2019, I was grappling with becoming a manager again because the opportunity kept presenting itself. I used to be a manager. I stepped down to be able to have more work-life balance after that burnout. I had just come back to work as just a regular associate, but I'd been a manager, so I was kind of like still feeling like I was in control, but I didn't have to give up my sense of control, but I also just got to play more. It was kind of a cool feeling. But this opportunity kept coming up to be a manager again, to have the certainty and the control and stability that came with accepting a role of responsibility, which meant that you have a certain amount of job, job security, right? Because you're the person that runs everything. So other associates were maybe dispensable, you know, if they're not performing well or they have attendance issues or whatever, you could just be like, well, I'll just get someone else. It's a lot harder to replace a manager who has a lot more responsibilities. So for me, being in that role of like having all these responsibilities meant that I was going to be a little more secure, a little more stable, and of course have higher income. And for me back then, I didn't feel like I could manifest or bring in any kind of wealth beyond money, and I had to do that through my job. So at this time, the reason why I bring it up is because I was dealing with this back in January of 2019. I wanted the certainty and the money, but I did not want what I, quote, said, the storm cloud of mental energy and responsibility that came with being a manager again. And I bring it up only because we are now in April or May of 2025, and I still deal with this. This is a repeating pattern that has continued to repeat because, while I have manifested these wonderful things in every aspect of my life besides work, this is kind of the last lingering bit where my sense of security and stability comes from, is where I get money and income. And it is so hard to let go of that and to trust that things are going to work out when it has been ingrained so deeply inside of me that you get security and you get money from working hard and from proving your worth to other people. And I feel like the way that I've been called to follow continuously throughout my journey, and it's like coming up for me again, is to follow my own path, create what it is that I want to do, and trust that. And that is really hard. And at the crux of that, I think, is just trust in self, trusting myself that I can provide for myself, not in a way of like I can provide for myself, but I can be provided for, were I allowed myself to step into being all of me and creating from this part of me, rather than creating from this like old wound of having to prove myself in order to be provided for, There was something, I was watching a lot of Teal Swan back then, so she said, often we think if we want the universe to make us happy, we think that means poor. So often we equate spirituality and being a spiritual, pious person or something like that with, that means that you're not going to have money. You're going to be the starving artist kind of syndrome, and so I was grappling with extricating those ideas, that they don't equate each other, that just because you are spiritual doesn't mean that you need to be dedicated to these ideas of like, that means a life of being poor and scarcity and all that. I was also struggling with, I asked in my journal, why was I having so much trouble trusting the universe? Because I could see all these signs and synchronicities, and I was having these days of flow and surrender where things were just coming in. But I couldn't do that in my job. My job was so like, you have to show up and you have to work really hard. And then in my own free time, I was able to manifest all this wonderful stuff. But marrying the two is like this like impossibility, it felt like at the time, and still feels like to an extent. It feels hard to marry those two worlds. And I don't think that's entirely my fault. I think we live in a society where there is such a break in between those two worlds of like the happiness and the abundance of home and hearth and like your own personal freedom and expression, and then, society, money, capitalism, the industriousness of society. We do have quite a separation in human society right now, and naturally that would be reflected in the internal worlds of the humans within that society, right? And so I think, part of it is my own stuff that I'm dealing with from childhood, but part of that is because we live in a world like that, So I was dealing with that back then, still deal with it now. But at that time, this is the part that I really want to address, is that I felt like signs and synchronicities meant that the steps that I was taking at that current point in time in 2019, January 2019, I felt that the signs and synchronicities were telling me like the things that I wanted to do, like move to a different country and totally start over and do all these things, that is the exact right way to go. And looking back, I can see the parts of me that were trying to cope with a very stressful life in feeling like if I just escape my current problems and start over and start fresh, that everything will be okay. And maybe it would have. I don't know. That's not the path I took. But I do believe that you can change your circumstances and change your situation, and that will have a great influence and impact for you in a big way, but also you still bring the same self to that place. So whatever I haven't dealt with here, I'm going to still have to deal with that version of me somewhere else. But maybe the external circumstances and changes will help to create that change, but you still have to deal with it. Like, you can't run from yourself is the point that I'm trying to make. And I very much wanted to at that time. But with angel numbers and synchronicities, I was taking those as a sign that it was like a direction from the universe. Like, you are on the right path, take this path and you will be okay and all this stuff. I so wanted to be told that I was special and there's a special purpose for you and there's a special path for you and there's a right path for you and we're showing you this path for you. I wanted to be told what that was. And I don't think that that's what's at the crux of spirituality. I think that what's at the crux of spirituality is you owning your human self and owning your soul aspect, and the two of them married together, this higher perspective, this like bird's eye view perspective of life and spirituality and how it all works and energy currents and cycles and all this stuff, that higher knowing of the bigger picture and how you are part of that bigger picture in the universe, coupled with the egoic human aspect that wants the things that we want, the desires and the needs that we have that need to be met, make this beautiful like vessel for us to experience life through. And you need the both of them married together, choosing from a place of free will what we want to do in life. It's not like the universe has this bigger, greater answer outside of you and it's holding on to that and just keeping it quiet. And you can't know about it until a certain point in your journey. Rather, it is only through you knowing yourself so intimately as both the human and the soul aspect and how those two integrate together. And from that place where you have deconditioned yourself, let go of limiting beliefs, you've done the shadow work to understand and acknowledge aspects of yourself that maybe are not okay to other people, but you make them okay to yourself. Bringing all those things in and embodying a full version of yourself from that place where you are no longer reacting to things that happened in your childhood, you are no longer emotionally triggered by what most people are triggered by, that sense of peace and calm and centeredness and the marriage of the many different aspects of you, but in this particular case, the human aspect and the soul aspect of you, from that place is the point where you are at a point of free will. And from that free will place, that means that you can literally choose anything. It is whatever you want, whatever you desire. And that is your correct path in life. It's not like that answer's out there waiting for you to like discover it. I mean, it is from a perspective, but really it's like you could get to that point of being centered, the married aspects, the decondition, all that stuff, and sit here and like be here, and you'll be waiting your whole life until you choose from free will what to go after and choose it and then go for it. Your purpose is not known. Like the angel numbers and the synchronicities and all those things. I forgot where I was going with that. Where this whole conversation started. The angel numbers and synchronicities tell you when you're in that alignment. They tell you when you are integrating. They tell you when you are bringing together both your higher self, you know, your spiritual aspect and your human aspect, and you're together and you're aligned. That's all it's doing. I felt like. Maybe it's different for other people. In my journey, when I was a spiritual baby, I thought it was like the universe trying to tell me, this is the way you're supposed to go, this is what you're supposed to do, and all that stuff. I was waiting for everybody else to tell me, well, not everybody else, but you know, all the spiritual energy to tell me what I was supposed to do, rather than choosing it for myself. And really, it would take a few years to learn that it was really just reflecting back to me, you're in alignment right now. So what do you choose from free will? What do you desire? What do you want to go after? How are you meeting your needs? Like, how are you fulfilling yourself? Whatever. All it's doing was saying all that energy that's normally like twisting around, like all out here and stuff, you were totally centered and in alignment. Good job. Now what do you want? And then knowing that answer deeply within, that's, you know, that's how you create with life. Oh, I want to clarify real quick, the higher self, it's this higher consciousness aspect of ourselves that can see kind of a bird's eye view of the patterns and the cycles and, you know, the lunar cycles, the cycles of the elements of life and rebirth or life, death, and rebirth, and just all the patterns that go through the universe. Being able to see all that and see yourself go through those different phases, through the year, through the month, through the week, through the years, like as you see these patterns repeat itself, which is really why I'm sharing these journals, is because I can see these massive patterns repeating throughout the years, and I understand myself and the world on such a deeper level. Each year it gets deeper and deeper. The higher self version of you, some people would call that your soul, some people call it your higher self, Some people call it your future self. Abraham Hicks calls it your inner being. It's your soul aspect. I think I would refer to it as your soul aspect or your higher self. I don't mean like it's better than your human self. I don't think there really is a separation. I think we have to make that separation distinction in our minds to be able to understand it better from our limited perspective. And because we compartmentalize and we organize and we structure and label and pull things apart, and it helps us to understand things, right? But it really is one and the same. But the higher self is the aspect of your consciousness that can be aware of the bigger patterns that are repeating in your life. And that part comes from your soul. Your soul is like still connected to that greater universal consciousness. And some people call that universal consciousness, some people call that God, some people call that universe, spirit, great mother, whatever. It's that bigger consciousness that is aware of all those cycles. And so your soul aspect is the part of you that's still like tapped into that. And your egoic human perspective, I feel like, is like the body and the mind, the part of you that can perceive that things are separate because we live in a separate reality. And we need that separation to be able to see what is us and what is not us, and to compare and contrast and choose. Like, you can't, if everything was the same, there would be no choice to make. So in order to experience unique paths in life and unique lives that help us learn and grow and expand consciousness itself, we have to have, things have to be different for us to be able to pick and choose and for free will to mean anything, right? So we have to have this mind aspect of us that perceives a difference, that perceives separation, and the body aspect of us that senses very validly that we have a unique perspective in life that is different from the next person over. Our levels of sensitivity and our levels of rationality and our levels of perception, our levels of perception of the internal world versus the external world, our perception of gender, of sexuality, of just all kinds of things, right? A perception of living ourselves as like the different zodiac signs within our chart, and the astrology and the energy that was at work in the universe at the moment that we were born, and that all being expressed through you as an individual. It's all a unique experience. And because you have that unique experience, you help consciousness, because you are consciousness, you help it to grow and expand by having experiences that allow you to experience contrast and to pick and choose what you want, what you don't want. And forget where I was going with all that, but it's just so necessary to have both the higher self and the human self together, working together, because it's how you marry the entirety of your life. You are not just soul aspect, you are not just human aspect, you are both, and neither is better than the other. They just have their own unique experiences and perceptions of the world and the universe, and through marrying the both of them, you become like uber powerful. I mean, honestly, you do, because you have these two very powerful perceptions of the world and the universe and how it all works, and you marry the two, and that creates super consciousness. I've never called it that before, but it just seems very superhuman, super consciousness of yourself, to have those two perspectives. So let me get back. We tangented, I don't know if that's a word, but we tangented quite a bit from that. By we, I mean I. Oh yeah. Kind of going back to what I was saying too about when we make choices from that human aspect and that soul aspect, and that's free will, we're choosing. It doesn't always mean that you're going to choose right either. And I think right's the wrong word. I would rather say we're not going to choose what makes us happiest necessarily. Maybe we think that we are, and maybe we want to, but sometimes these choices result in, nope, that wasn't it. And that doesn't mean that you failed or made a mistake. It means that at that point in time, you had this belief that that was going to make you happy, and so you chose it. Now you realize it's not going to make you happy, and now it's a redirect. Now it's, okay, didn't want that, didn't like that, but what did I learn about myself? What do I not like about that? What do I not, how does that reflect in any way like something within me that I don't like, or something within me that I don't, is there a limiting belief that created that circumstance? Can I release that? Can I embody something more empowering, more like that embodies the totality of me more so? and then create a new choice. So, you know, things that don't work out, it's not like you chose wrong. It was obviously the best choice that you could make at that time. And so if that turned out to not be the one that you wanted, that's okay. It's just a redirect. And I was kind of coming into that arena of learning that as well, that even when I was in alignment, the choices I made didn't always result in my happiness. And I was like, what the heck? I got all these angel numbers and synchronicities. Why didn't it work out for me? And it's because I don't think every choice leads to immediate happiness, especially when you're a spiritual baby. But think about it like, here you are in the journey way back here as a spiritual baby. And your happiness is like way over here. And to get over here, you can make 5 different choices, and none of them will be that end state yet of where you want to be. But from those 5 choices, you learn something. And now, whatever choice you did make of those 5, now you've got, 2 more branching off from each one of them. And then you choose of those 2 what you wanted. And yes, life would have been different had you chosen this other one, because then you have 2 other choices over here. But essentially you keep branching off and making all these choices. And been talking too much, sorry. No one of those choices was wrong. And it's not like had you chosen this one instead of this one, you'd be over here already. Like, you still have to take that journey over here. And so I think as a spiritual baby, I was thinking this next choice is going to be the one, and I'm going to be over here with this one choice. Or, oh God, I chose wrong. Now I should have chosen this one. Now I know I should have chosen this one, so now I choose that one. But you're still way back here, so it's okay. Like, making these different choices back here, you're just exploring more pathways. You're just exploring more energies within yourself and within the world. But you're still always going to have been back here at this level. You're still not up here at the end state, your dream life or whatever, And so we go through life and we're constantly choosing these different split offs and these different paths, and eventually you get so far away in these different branches that you're over here and you started over here, and your life looks very different than if you had done this one over here. But eventually you're going to make it to that side where most things in your life are back in alignment and make you happy, hopefully, because you're choosing each time to take the gold from each lesson. You're choosing to alchemize whatever within you needed to make that choice at that time, and seeing what worked, what didn't work, choosing to learn something about that. It gets you one step closer every time to whatever that dream life, that end state is that you want. Okay, so I'm not exactly sure where I left off because I went to go get some water because my throat was getting really dry from talking a lot. But essentially on that day that I had journaled about all that, the angels, numbers, the synchronicities and all that stuff, and I summed up that day by just saying I had a really good day and just knew that taking that role of being manager again would mean being unhappy and stressed again. And I already knew which road that was leading me down because I'd been down it before, and I just didn't want that. It's the known future. It's the secure one. I know what it'll give me and I want what it'll give me. But I also know the heartache and I just literally don't have a life. And what kind of life is that? So I, even though every part of me that wanted the security, wanted to choose that, and felt very, very anxious about not grabbing onto that opportunity when it was presented to me, I chose not that way. I didn't know what I was choosing, but it was not that path. And I couldn't know that I was going to be okay and stable and safe choosing that path, but I knew that I was going to get a different result than that. And that would probably, I didn't even know if that would make me happy. I just knew that I couldn't choose that other one again because I'd burnt out so badly and just felt such soul-crushing death going down that path. So that's where I ended at for that. So I watched another Teal Swan video. That video, I just had a few key points that I learned from that. I think the video was called Upset is a Setup. So the word upset is like a set up to something else. So she talked about trying to separate an event from what we think that the event means. She talked in this video about, she told the story of she saw a deer in the forest and the deer was hurt. But the deer is not like thinking about how it's hurt and being like, oh, I shouldn't have let this happen. I can't believe this is happening to me right now. Like the deer is just like, I need to go rest or find my herd, or whatever a deer does when it's hurt. I don't know what a deer would do when it's hurt, but the idea behind it was the fact that we humans suffer so much because we get hurt, and then we're like, oh, what does it mean? Like we're trying to assign all this meaning. And for one, that's kind of like a byproduct or a consequence of having a consciousness that can perceive us, like ourselves, outside of ourselves, outside of the being. It's not just our physical sensational experience of life. We can also come from outside of ourselves and observe ourselves and reflect and all that. But where it starts to help make us suffer is when we do it too much, right? Like the classic feeling like an overthinker. You overthink everything, so much to the point that you just like kind of paralyze yourself. Analysis paralysis, like we can do that. But the point of her video was much of human suffering is about two things. When we think something should be that isn't, or we think something shouldn't be that is. And for me, that second one was really important, was like me thinking things shouldn't be that are. And I had such resistance to it. Interestingly enough, I was thinking about this just a few days ago, that I've gotten into this rut of a habit again of like looking at like a customer will come in and I'm like, why do I have to deal with this kind of a person or this kind of situation? And I do it with like every single one because I'm burnt out and I'm so tired of my job. I've just done it a billion times over, over the last 15 years. I'm just sick of it. I'm tired of it, right? Like that's my own thing, right? These customers aren't really being mean. They're just being themselves. And I'm just like, ugh. I am resisting what is, instead of putting the energy towards, well, I'm putting it towards what I want to do, which is create YouTube videos and see wherever that takes me. But instead, I'd gotten into this habit of like instead of putting the energy towards creative life movement and effort towards what I want to create in life, I was just kind of complacent and sitting still and just like resisting. Ugh, this shouldn't be. I shouldn't have to deal with this person. I shouldn't have to deal with this all over again. I shouldn't. And it's like, yes, but also, am I taking any action? Am I taking the personal responsibility to not do that? So back then, much like now, that's what I was dealing with at that time. And so I wrote, when I feel doubt or worry or fear, I think many times that it's triggered by these thoughts. Like, I shouldn't have to have a roommate to be able to afford a place where we pay rent, but that's nice. And that's like got some space to it. Like I shouldn't have to go to a job that I don't like. I shouldn't have to like resisting all these things. And like, there is such a superpower in that, because that means that I tend to make a lot of changes in my life to cast out things that I don't want and release beliefs that I don't want so that I can have more of what I do want. But that also means that when it's not in balance, I tend to resist everything. Like, I shouldn't be dealing with this upset. I shouldn't be dealing with this. And like, sometimes that's just part of life, is like wherever you're at in life, like there's going to be stuff that you don't like. And at that point in time, I was putting too much energy into resisting, which was causing more suffering than I needed to. And instead of redirecting some of that energy, like towards the stuff that I wanted, like right now, here in 2025, yes, I'm putting more energy into YouTube and stuff, but I'm still going to have to go back to my job tomorrow, my 9 to 5, and deal with stuff that I don't want. But if I can choose with my conscious mind and say, I don't want to suffer tomorrow when I'm at work, then I'm going to choose to, when those thoughts come up and I'm like resisting and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to have to deal with this person, I can instead be like, is that really where I want to put my energy? Or can I think about redirect my thoughts in that moment and be like, tomorrow, looking back on today when I'm filming this, be like, I just filmed I think this is my 6th video today. I made so much progress on putting energy towards something that I actually enjoy, that I want to do, creating something that I love. This is just kind of where I'm at currently in life, and it's okay. Like, I can self-soothe and be like, I am moving towards what I want, and sometimes right now I'm gonna have to do stuff that I don't want, but that's okay. And I will have perspective to bring that into balance. Whereas what I was doing back then and what I was doing yesterday in current times is just putting so much resistance. Like all this creative life force energy is being put into this resistance. It shouldn't be like this. Life shouldn't be like this. Life shouldn't be like this. And no, it shouldn't. Like ideally everyone would have a really happy life. But also I don't, I don't think that's what we came here to do necessarily. I think we did come here to have a happy life, but I don't think that we were meant to just come here and be handed it on a silver platter and like, that's it, the end, good job. Because I think our world would just look very different. Like that would be like what everyone imagines heaven to be, right? Like it's just this like beautiful, perfect place. And like, that's not really what Earth is. So, yeah, anyways, so getting back to back then. When we have resistance to the present moment, we cannot be in a state of allowing. And attachment to what shouldn't be is a state of rigidity, and it puts us at war with what is, at war with the present moment. And so, yeah, so I was just learning this for the first time back then, and clearly still learning it now. But, she wrote, or she also said, instead, if you can ask yourself, why should this be happening? And find and list all the aspects. Then I feel like it's a very painful process, but also it puts you back in the driver's seat. It helps you to take responsibility again for what you actually can do. Because if I had to journal this now, why should this be happening? Well, because I have chosen more often to enjoy myself and enjoy a work-life balance and relax and create space for my spirituality and create space for enjoying friendships and create space for enjoying being with my husband and create space for enjoying being with my cats and learning skills and trying new hobbies and like all this stuff. And it's been amazing. But I've put, and my shadow work and emotional healing journey and inner child work and all that stuff. Like I have put all this energy into all that, and it's wonderful. And I needed stability while I did that. And I didn't want to focus on career or what I was doing with like my creative energy and putting myself out there and creating something for myself. I didn't want to do that. I wasn't focused on that. So why should this be happening? Because I never changed it. I went and changed and like worked on every other aspect of my life, but I needed that constant, that stability of the income of, I know how to do this. I get paid well for what I'm doing because I've been doing it forever and I have the experience, and there's the pain, the pro of that. I afforded the rest of my life that I wanted and loved. And the con of that was I'm still stuck at this job where I am in resistance to every little thing, even though none of it's inherently bad or upsetting. It's just the repetition of what I've done forever, and it's all boring. It's so mundane and nothing magical or new or special or fulfilling or satisfying, and it's just me showing up and giving. And I just, like that's the con. So there's pros and cons, and this is why it should be happening, because I never did anything to change it, but also it helped all this other stuff come into being. And so now I'm just at this like pain point crux of like trying to bring that back into balance. How do I now bring the space that I show up in to bring in income, or to put my creative force energy out there and create something in life and put it out into the world, and whatever will come from that, whatever abundance comes from that. Now I'm shifting the energy from all that lovely stuff that I've created and shifting it more into that. And hopefully that will then begin to shift. I think it will. I just haven't consistently put enough effort into that to see results from that, but it's time to now. So yeah, so that's what she was saying. So, and if you're going to ask yourself those questions, ask yourself, why should this be happening? You've got to acknowledge both the positive and the negative. Don't just do one or the other. It can be really easy to get down on yourself and like be mad at yourself. Like I could be mad at myself for 6 to 7 years not putting any work into my career or making more money or whatever. I could be mad at myself for that, but look at all the positive that came from it, right? Also, I could be mad at the world for existing the way it is, like having boring ass corporate jobs be a thing, but like, do I really want to put that energy there? No, that's such a wasted energy, that energy that I could be putting into like videos like this and things like this is the way I create and I enjoy doing that. So, yeah, make sure that you list out both the positive and negative aspects. Let's see here. Upset is never meant to thwart your progress, only to enhance it. Yeah, that's definitely part of a growth mindset. If you ever read the book, I think it's by Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset. That's a really good one because I think that we are trained and conditioned to have kind of a fixed mindset about the world, like things are the way they are, and having a growth mindset literally shifts, like makes you question everything in a way that comes back into helping you get back into an empowered state of mind. So if you ever feel like, why me, this always happens to me, growth mindset is like a really good thing to look into because it's going to help you to ask the questions, to reframe everything, to put you back into a seat of power so you can actually affect change. If you always feel like, why is this always happening to me? This keeps repeating. I can't ever move forward in life. Often it comes down to asking better questions. Ask a better question. Instead of why me, I don't know what the better question is, but ask a better question, get a better answer, you know, is the idea behind that. I didn't mean that to be too forceful. Sorry if it was like super direct. We all get to those points where we're like, why me? You know, I was asking myself that just yesterday when I was like, why me? Why am I stuck in this stupid job? It happens to all of us, right? So instead, I started asking better questions. What would I rather be doing? Why am I not doing those things? Why don't I get up tomorrow? And like, what would it take for me to get up tomorrow and start filming a video? And then I kind of started, instead of putting all my energy into resisting those customers that were coming in, I started putting my energy into, in between those customers, I would like plan out, like, what does my day look like tomorrow? What am I going to do? What does that mean I got to do tonight? Like, I was feeling really stiff and tense, like so tense because my cat passed away about a month ago. Like, we've been just going through all this stuff. This month has just been a very emotionally intense month for me. So I felt a lot of tension in my body. And I was like, I'm going to schedule a massage. Self-care. So I did that last night. Saw Tony. Tony did great work on my shoulders and my neck. And he was hilarious. And then this morning I woke up. I felt good. I made my breakfast and got my coffee and didn't go for a walk. Wanted to go for a walk because that gets my energy moving and helps me to think better. But I opened my door and the allergies and I started sneezing and I was like, we're not doing a walk this morning. But got the camera stuff set up and here I am. Here we are. So I forget why I was saying that. Ask better questions. That's how I did that exercise yesterday. I think that's kind of where I want to stop it because I'm sure this video is getting long. Yeah. Sorry, I just looked at the timer. I'm like, yeah, it's getting long. I just talk a lot. I have an entry from January 20th of 2019, but I actually already filmed a video about this like 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm going to go back into my archives and like I forget what it's called, but you know, like a flash drive, the big ones, the terabyte ones. I've got all my old videos on it. I'm going to go see if I can find that video. Hopefully I saved it. I don't know why I deleted it. I hope I wasn't feeling too negatively about myself and like deleted it. Hopefully I can find it. Then I'll just react to it rather than retelling it all, because that would be cute, you know, and like fun and different, you know, to have younger me talking about this. It was basically a dream that I had and I worked through it, blah, blah, blah. That's great. This is perfect. The next 2 days, January 21st and 22nd of 2019, I was doing tarot card readings that foretold of troubles ahead that I can see now with my perspective. But I was unable to read tarot accurately back then, and I was a spiritual baby, so I was just trying to project what I wanted the cards to mean in them. So that was interesting reading back through those. If you do tarot card readings for yourself and you're just starting out, I highly recommend journaling them because I found it fascinating to go back and read those and be like, wow, I did not, of course I was doing my best at the time, right? But I did not know how to read tarot, and it was so clear how much I projected. And it was just a really interesting experience to see myself as a spiritual baby, you know? It's like looking through an old photo album of your human self, but you're doing it for your spiritual self. Yeah. I was gonna go off on a different tangent. I was like, keep it crystal clear, keep it concise. Let's ground back into the current moment. I think we're going to stop it there because the next entry is January 23rd of 2019. It was a day of living in flow. I wrote that the description is really nice, so I'm probably going to have to bring out my journal for that. We'll go into that. So we'll do that for the next one. I was beginning to show myself love and what that actually feels like. So this was a day of surrender. I still remember it very clearly off the top of my head. I kept some mementos from it. I think something cool happened from it. I don't remember. After I just told you, I remember it in very clear detail. Something happened with it. And then the next day, we're dealing with expectation. Like, I hung out with some people that I've known for basically my whole life and felt very icky and disappointed and isolated after having talked to them, because now I was growing spiritually and becoming aware of this whole other way of operating, and it was so clear that they were not. And there was a lot of sadness because I did not want to feel separate from them. Sadness because I was like, when you're first starting out, you start to reject your old ways of being. And when you come across people who are still the way that you used to be, you kind of like feel like icky around them because you're like rejecting that aspect of yourself and trying to move away from it. And so you kind of reject them too. And that just feels like there's all kinds of not great feelings with that. So I really want to get into that in the next video to share with you, because we all go through it. We all go through that. So yeah, that's where we're going to end it here for today. And next video, we'll pick up with the day of flow and surrender, and self-care. And then also dealing with other people around us not changing while we're changing, you know, and all the feelings that come with that. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm sorry I'm so inconsistent. Like I said, I'm focusing on like redirecting that energy, not resisting what is, but putting that energy towards what I want. And so, yeah, I never know how to end these videos, but make sure you're liked and subscribed and ring the bell for notifications, because when I do post, then you'll get notified. And I really am going to try to keep this more in tune. I also think I'm going to strip the audio off these videos and upload them as like podcasts so that you can listen to these while you're like going for a walk or whatever. I do that with YouTube anyways, but I think you have to pay, like you have to have the paid membership for YouTube to be able to like turn off the video and just listen to it audibly. So I listen to most YouTube videos audibly, you know, like through that. But a lot of people don't have that, I guess. So I've had several people who I've told, you know, like, oh, I have a YouTube channel, and they're like, oh, I want a podcast version. So I'm probably gonna do that. It just takes more time. But it's okay. That's where I want to put my energy, right? So it's worth it all in the end, right? So anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, week, month ahead of you. Happy Taurus season. It's Taurus season 2025. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.